Welcome back to Fluent English, the podcast. I'm Giorgia. Think in English.
And I'm Willem R. Today's episode is really exciting.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you're listening to us right now, chances are you've put in the hours with English. You probably understand quite a lot.
Oh, absolutely. You can likely follow complex topics, maybe watch movies, read articles.
Yeah, you might have notebooks filled with grammar rules, verb conjugations, lists of vocabulary. You feel like you know English intellectually.
But then,
Yeah.
the moment comes. A real conversation starts, maybe the phone rings, or you're just face-to-face with someone.
And bam, nothing. The words just disappear. Your mind goes completely blank. It's like a total freeze.
It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? Especially for people who are, generally high achievers. You've got all this knowledge banked up.
But you can't withdraw it when you need it most. It feels like a paradox. You know it, but you can't do it.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about today. We're going to unpack the real reasons behind this block.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's usually not about needing more vocabulary or more grammar lessons.
Okay, so it's not about lack of knowledge.
Not fundamentally, no. It's often about the approach being wrong. It's about mindset barriers, it's about how we were taught, and it's about how we practice. Or rather, how we don't practice the right way.
So we're digging into the faulty wiring, so to speak, not just trying to cram more data in.
Precisely. We're looking at the operating system, not just the software applications. We want to figure out what's stopping that fluency from just emerging naturally, like it should. This isn't about a quick fix list. It's about understanding the core issues and correcting them.
All right, let's jump right in, because this feeling, this weight of knowing so much but being unable to speak, it can actually make the problem worse, can't it? Like, the pressure builds.
It really does. We're talking about people who could probably ace an advanced English grammar test. They know the rules inside out.
So if it's not a knowledge deficit, where does this paralysis actually begin? What's the root cause? Our sources are pretty clear on this.
They are. Overwhelmingly, the single biggest showstopper, the thing that slams the brakes on speaking, it's fear.
Fear. Just plain old fear. You know the English, but you're genuinely too scared to open your mouth and use it.
Exactly. And here's the fascinating part. What kind of fear are we talking about? It's almost never a fear of the English language itself. Nobody lies awake at night terrified of the present, perfect, continuous tense.
Right, that would be weird.
It would. The fear is almost entirely social. It's the fear of judgment. What will other people think?
Yeah. Okay, so it's performance anxiety, basically.
Totally. The second you start to speak, you feel exposed. You might make a mistake, you might stumble, your accent might be noticeable, and the immediate thought is, if I mess up, they'll judge me. They'll think I'm stupid or incompetent.
And that internal monologue kicks in, that little voice.
So that voice, it's brutal. It starts whispering all these doubts. What if I use the wrong word? What if my grammar's clunky? What if they just don't understand me at all? What if they laugh?
And it's not just general shyness, is it? It seems specifically targeted at language performance. It feels like the potential for that tiny moment of awkwardness, that micro-judgment.
Completely outweighs the actual goal, which is to connect, to communicate, to share an idea. It's a powerful self-sabotaging loop.
You mentioned judgment. Our sources also touch on something deeper, differentiating between how we react to mistakes. Something about shame versus guilt.
Yes, this is crucial. It's a psychological distinction that has huge implications for learning. Think about it this way. Guilt is focused on the action. Oops, I used the wrong preposition there. I feel a bit bad about that specific error.
Okay, so it's about the mistake itself.
Right, and that's actually productive. Guilt signals something needs fixing. You can learn from it. Okay, note to self. It's interested in, not interested on.
Yeah.
You correct the action.
But shame.
Shame internalizes the error. It connects the mistake to your fundamental self-worth. It's not, I made a mistake. It's, I am a mistake. It's, I feel bad because I am flawed. I am stupid. I am a failure for making that error.
Wow. That's heavy and incredibly paralyzing, I imagine.
Completely debilitating. Because if every potential mistake carries the threat of feeling fundamentally flawed, why would you ever risk speaking? Fluent speakers, or those on the path, tend to treat errors with guilt. It's just data, feedback for improvement.
But someone stuck in that fear loop treats it as shame, so they avoid the trigger speaking altogether to protect their self-image.
Precisely. They build a wall around themselves made of silence, because silence feels safer than the risk of shame.
This explains why chasing perfection is such a trap. It's rooted in avoiding that feeling of shame. But Okay, here's a question that I know listeners will have because I felt this too. If the advice is be brave, speak even if it's broken, aren't we just reinforcing bad habits? Don't we need some focus on accuracy?
That's a fantastic question, and it highlights a real tension in skill acquisition. The sources suggest it's not an either, but a matter of sequence and priority. Think about it like this. Action has to come before refinement. If you wait until your grammar is flawless, until you're 100% confident, you'll make zero mistakes. You'll literally never start.
Because that moment never arrives.
Never. You need to build the foundational skill first, the actual ability to produce sounds, string words together, manage the rhythm, what we call procedural memory. That only comes from doing.
So get the engine running first, worry about the exact rack later.
Kind of, yeah. If you speak imperfectly for, say, a month, making lots of mistakes but actively communicating, you're building those neural pathways for speech production. You're getting the hustles working. Then, when you get feedback or you notice your own errors, you can correct them more effectively.
Why more effectively?
Because the mistakes are no longer just abstract concepts in your head. They're real, tangible things you've actually produced.
Yeah.
You heard yourself say it wrong. That makes the correction stick. If you stay silent, the potential error remains hypothetical, intellectual. It hasn't been experienced.
Okay, so bravery gets you moving, and the movement itself makes the correction process possible and more effective.
Exactly. Bravery is the starter motor. Correction is the steering. You absolutely need steering, but you can't steer a parked car. You have to turn the engine on first.
And we need to internalize that counter-narrative you mentioned.
We absolutely do. Every single person you admire who speaks English fluently, every single one was once stumbling, making mistakes, sounding awkward. They were a broken speaker.
The difference is they just kept going.
They kept the engine running through the awkwardness. They accepted that initial messiness, the occasional stall, as just the price you pay to learn. It's part of the process, not a sign you should quit.
So the big takeaway here isn't grammar doesn't matter. It's bravery matters first.
Precisely. Performance requires bravery as a prerequisite. Waiting for perfection is waiting forever. You don't need flawless English to connect with someone. You just need to be brave enough to start the conversation, imperfections and all.
And when you let go of that self-judgment, that need to be perfect.
The pressure just evaporates. That internal pressure cooker cools down. And honestly, most native speakers, or just anyone you're talking to, they're not sitting there with a grammar checklist.
Right. They're usually just focused on understanding you.
Exactly. They're usually impressed and happy you're making the effort to communicate in their language. They want to understand the message, not nitpick the third conditional. Dropping the self-judgment breaks that first huge barrier.
Okay, that fear barrier is massive. But you mentioned something else feeds into it, the way we're often taught. Let's talk about the system itself, the school trap.
Yes, this is fundamental, because the way most of us learned English in school inadvertently sets us up for this exact problem, knowing a lot about English, but not knowing how to use it.
How so? What's wrong with the traditional approach?
Well, think about what school rewards. It rewards knowing the rules, memorizing vocabulary lists, analyzing sentences. Basically, it teaches you how to pass exams.
Right, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, identify the tense.
Exactly. It focuses on passive knowledge rock and analysis, which is fine for getting good grades. But it completely fails to teach you how to perform real-world, spontaneous communication tasks.
Like ordering a coffee without sounding like a robot, or asking for directions when you're lost.
Precisely. School gives you declarative knowledge, facts about the language. You can declare the rule for using since versus for. You can list modal verbs. You know what a gerund is.
Okay, that's the knowing about.
Yes. But speaking requires procedural knowledge. It's knowing how. It's the ability to execute a complex sequence of actions, thinking, forming sentences, coordinating mouth muscles, listening, responding instantly, automatically, without conscious thought about the rules.
Like riding a bike, you don't think about the physics of balance while you're doing it.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
School teaches you the physics of bike riding. It teaches you the names of the parts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't put you on the bike and push you down the hill until you figure out how to stay upright through sheer repetition and, well, falling off a few times.
So school focuses on analysis, breaking things down. But speaking needs synthesis, building things up on the fly.
Exactly. Analysis is slow, deliberate. Synthesis for speech needs to be fast, almost unconscious. School trained you to dissect a sentence on paper. It doesn't train you to construct one fluidly while someone's waiting for an answer.
Which leads us to that core realization. Speaking isn't a subject like history or geography.
It's a skill, like playing the piano or cooking or swimming.
Ah, the swimming analogy. Our sources really emphasize this one. Let's dive deep into that because I think it perfectly illustrates the gap.
Okay, let's really unpack it. Imagine you decide, I want to be a fantastic swimmer. And you approach it like an academic subject.
Right, you hit the library.
You spend maybe 2 years studying. You read, let's say, 10 incredibly detailed books. Not just swimming for dummies, but advanced stuff. Hydrodynamics, the biomechanics of the perfect freestyle stroke, breathing techniques for butterfly, competitive flip turns, even sports nutrition for swimmers.
You become a walking encyclopedia of swimming. You could lecture on the history of the backstroke. You know everything about it.
You feel incredibly knowledgeable, confident in your theoretical understanding, but you have never, not once, actually gotten into a pool.
All input, zero output.
Exactly. Now, what happens? You finally finish your 10th book. You walk confidently to the edge of the deep end of the pool, feeling intellectually prepared. And you jump in for the very first time.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty.
You're going to flail. You'll swallow water. You'll panic. As the analogy starkly puts it, you will drown the first time. Metaphorically speaking, of course.
And why? Not because the books were wrong.
Not at all. The physics, the techniques, it was all correct information. You drown because the knowledge is stored in the wrong place. It's conscious analytical knowledge.
But swimming requires
Physical capability, muscle memory, procedural skill. Your body needs to learn how to coordinate breathing with arm movements, how to kick effectively, how to feel the water's resistance, and work with it. That knowledge doesn't come from reading, it comes from the sensory experience of being in the water.
You need to feel the cold, feel the buoyancy, feel the timing. Your muscles need to learn it directly.
Yes, independent of your conscious brain analyzing the theory, you can't learn to juggle by reading about gravity and projectile motion. You learn by throwing the balls, dropping them hundreds of times, and letting your body slowly figure out the timing and coordination. That awkward, messy, repetitive practice is the learning process for a skill.
And speaking English is exactly the same. It's a complex psychomotor skill.
Absolutely. The water is the real conversation. Messy, unpredictable, fast-paced. Your brain might consciously know the rule for forming a question, but your tongue, your jaw, your vocal cords, your processing speed, they haven't been trained through repetition to execute that rule smoothly under pressure.
So school gave us the swimming manuals, the theory.
But it never actually pushed us into the pool.
Yeah.
It never forced us into that messy application phase where the real skill development happens.
So the fix for this school trap is what? We have to fundamentally change how we view English learning.
Completely. Stop treating it solely as an academic subject to be studied passively. Start treating it like learning a musical instrument or a sport. It's a performance skill that demands dedicated, consistent, and yes, often awkward practice sessions.
Getting in the metaphorical pool every day.
Every single day. Actively forcing yourself into situations where you have to produce the language, even if it's imperfect. That's the only way to bridge the gap between knowing and doing.
Okay, so we have the fear barrier and we have the flawed educational model setting us up. Now let's talk about what's happening inside our heads when we try to speak. The internal mechanics. This is where the translation loop comes in, right?
Yes. And if fear is the emotional break and school is the faulty training ground, then this internal translation habit is, for many learners, the single biggest cognitive bottleneck killing their fluency.
Describe what that looks like internally. What's happening when someone's translating?
Okay, imagine someone asks you a question in English. If you're stuck in the translation loop, your brain doesn't just process the English and formulate an English response. Instead, it goes on this huge, inefficient detour.
A detour.
A massive one. First, it hears the English input. Step 1. Translate that English into your native language, L1, to fully understand it. Step 2. Think about your answer. Formulate the perfect grammatically safe response in your L1. Step 3. Now translate that carefully crafted L1 response back into English, L2. Step 4. Mentally rehearse the English sentence. Step 5. Finally, speak the English sentence out loud.
Wow. That sounds exhausting just describing it.
It is exhausting. Cognitively, it's incredibly demanding. You're constantly switching between languages, accessing 2 different mental dictionaries, applying 2 different sets of grammatical rules, all in the space of a few seconds while someone is waiting for you to reply.
No wonder conversations feel like a high-speed chase you can never keep up with.
Exactly. That multi-step translation process guarantees you will always be lagging behind. The moment you internally ask, okay, how do I say this specific thought in English? you've already lost the natural flow.
You're prioritizing accuracy and safety from your L1 perspective over the flow of the L2 conversation.
Precisely. And neurologically, this triggers what psychologists call executive function overload. Your executive functions are like your brain's air traffic control, managing attention, planning, inhibiting wrong responses, switching tasks.
And translation just swamps the control tower.
Completely swamps it. Language switching is one of the most resource-intensive tasks your brain can do. You're not just retrieving the English words, you're actively suppressing the L1 words that want to pop out while juggling L2 grammar.
Yeah.
It's cognitive gridlock, and that prevents the automaticity that's essential for fluency.
Let's nail down that word fluency again, because it's key here. It's not just about speaking fast, right?
Absolutely not. Speed can be a byproduct of fluency, but it's not the definition. Fluency is about flow. It's the ability to speak smoothly, naturally, without major hesitations or interruptions caused by conscious effort, like translation.
And translation is the ultimate interruption. It's like hitting a red light every few words.
Exactly. It breaks the rhythm, kills the momentum. It forces your brain to constantly stop, think, calculate, and restart.
So why do we do it? Why does the brain default to this inefficient translation process?
Because our native language, our L1, is the path of least resistance. It's the cognitive superhighway we've been paving and using every single day for decades. It's fast, automatic, effortless.
And English, the L2.
For many learners, it's still like a rough, overgrown country lane. Used infrequently, requires careful navigation, lots of conscious effort. So when you're put under pressure in a conversation, your brain instinctively defaults to the most reliable, efficient route it knows, which is thinking in L1 and then translating.
Okay, so the challenge is, how do we rewire the brain? How do we upgrade that L2 country lane into the default highway? How do we stop the translation?
We have to consciously, deliberately bypass the L1 detour. We need to build a direct connection between the concept or idea in our mind and the English expression for it. Concept straight to English. No L1 middleman.
Concept English, that's the goal. How do we actually train that? It sounds hard.
It is challenging because you're fighting years of habit, but the strategy itself needs to be simple, low stakes, and doable every day. The key is to start making English your internal voice, the language you think in.
Thinking in English, people talk about that all the time, but how do you start?
You start incredibly small. Don't try to translate Shakespeare in your head. Start with simple, immediate internal narration of your reality. What are you doing? What do you see? What do you feel right now?
Give me some examples, like super basic.
Super basic. You're walking to the kitchen. Think, I am walking. You open the fridge. Think, I'm hungry. Or, what's in here? You pour coffee. Think, this smells good. Or, careful, it's hot. You look outside, it's raining, the sun is shining. That's a blue car.
Okay, really mundane stuff. Present tense, simple vocabulary.
Exactly. There are two crucial reasons for starting this small. First, it lowers the pressure. These thoughts are simple, require basic words you definitely know, and don't involve complex grammar. So the fear factor is minimal.
Makes sense. What's the second reason?
More importantly, you are forging that direct link. You feel the sensation of hunger, the concept, and you immediately associate it with the English phrase, I'm hungry. You see rain, concept, you think it's raining, English. You're not thinking il pleut or está lloviendo and then translating. You're wiring concept directly to L2.
So each tiny internal narration is like paving one more stone on that L2 pathway.
Precisely. Every time you force that direct concept English link, you strengthen that connection. You're sending traffic down that dusty country lane. Do it often enough with thousands of these tiny thoughts every day.
And eventually it becomes the brain's preferred route. It becomes the highway.
That's the goal. It takes time and conscious effort, but making English your internal narrator for simple things is the most powerful way to break the translation habit. When your brain starts processing the world directly in English, the need to translate evaporates. The flow isn't being constantly interrupted anymore.
So winning that internal cognitive battle, making English the voice inside your head, even for simple stuff, is perhaps the single most critical step towards actual fluency.
Without a doubt. It stops the detour, stops the overload, and allows speech to finally flow.
Okay, we've covered fear, the school system's limitations, and that critical internal translation habit. Now let's look at behavior. What are learners typically doing day to day? This brings us to what our sources call the practice paradox.
Yes, the practice paradox.
Yeah.
This is probably the most common pattern among motivated learners who feel stuck. They're actively engaged with English, often daily, but they're doing it in a way that's fundamentally unbalanced.
Unbalanced how?
They're incredibly input-heavy, but drastically output-light, meaning they consume vast amounts of English, but they produce very little.
Right. So lots of listening to podcasts like this one, watching Netflix, reading news articles, listening to music. It feels productive, right? You're absorbing the language.
It is productive. For certain things, it builds fantastic listening comprehension, expands vocabulary, helps you understand cultural nuances and different accents.
Yeah.
Input is essential. But if that's 90% or even 100% of your practice, you've got a major problem.
Because you're only training half the equation, the receiving part.
Exactly. You're building the pathways for understanding, for decoding the language when it comes at you. But you're completely neglecting the pathways needed for producing the language, for sending it out. The speaking pathways remain dormant, untrained.
The sources use another great analogy here, eating versus exercising.
Yes, it's perfect. Consuming English, all that listening and reading is like eating.
Yeah.
You're taking in fuel, resources, building potential energy. You're absorbing knowledge, vocabulary, grammar patterns. You're getting intellectually fed.
Okay, gaining knowledge mass.
Right. But if you only eat and never exercise, what happens?
Well, you gain weight, maybe feel sluggish, you have the energy stored, but you can't really use it effectively. Your muscles don't get stronger.
Exactly. The lack of speaking, the lack of active output is like never exercising. All that stored knowledge, that potential energy just sits there. The muscles needed for speaking, both the literal muscles in your mouth and throat and the neurological pathways for retrieving words and forming sentences, quickly they remain weak and undeveloped.
So you have the ingredients in the pantry, knowledge, but you haven't practiced the recipes, speaking skill, enough to cook spontaneously.
Beautifully put. You know the rules, the recipe, you have the words, the ingredients, but you lack the trained muscle memory, the procedural skill, to actually cook the dish smoothly and efficiently when someone asks for it.
We need to talk about those muscles for a second, because speaking is physical, isn't it?
Absolutely. Producing sounds in English often requires different mouth shapes, tongue positions, and airflow than your native language. Think about sounds like the or certain vowel sounds. Your mouth literally needs to learn new movements.
Like learning chords on a guitar requires finger dexterity.
Precisely. If you only read books about weightlifting, your biceps don't grow. If you only listen to perfectly pronounced English, your tongue and lips don't automatically learn how to make those sounds fluidly. Output practice is physical training for your speech organs and the neural commands controlling them.
Okay, so the diagnosis is clear. Too much input, not enough output. What's the fix? Just speak more. That feels a bit vague.
It is too vague. The fix needs to be structured, measurable, and deliberate. Our sources propose a very concrete ratio to aim for.
A ratio. Okay, I like metrics.
For every 10 minutes you spend on focused English input, listening intently, reading carefully, you must then spend 2 minutes on focused English output, speaking.
10 minutes in, 2 minutes out. A 5-to-1 ratio.
Exactly. It still heavily favors input, which is realistic, but it mandates that crucial output component. It forces you to switch from passive consumption to active production regularly.
That 10.2 ratio sounds manageable. How would that work practically? Like if I listen to this deep dive for 30 minutes?
Then you owe yourself 6 minutes of dedicated speaking practice immediately afterward or very soon after.
Yeah.
Block it out. It transforms, I should practice speaking more, into a concrete daily task based on your consumption.
Okay, 6 minutes of speaking. But speaking what and how? Just talking to myself, does that count?
Yes, talking to yourself absolutely counts, especially at the beginning. The key is producing language. The sources highlight a couple of really effective solo output techniques.
Let's hear them.
First, self-recording. This is incredibly powerful. Pick a simple topic. Summarize what you just heard. Give your opinion on it. Talk about your plans for the day. Describe something you see. Then hit record on your phone and just speak for your allotted time, say those 2 or 6 minutes. Don't stop. Don't edit yourself heavily as you go. Just talk.
Okay, record myself talking. Why is that better than just talking?
Because of the playback. Listening back to yourself is gold. It provides immediate objective feedback. You'll hear exactly where you hesitated, where your pronunciation was unclear, where you perhaps defaulted back to L1 sentence structure, where your flow broke down. It makes the invisible visible.
So it's a diagnostic tool as well as practice. It helps confront the reality of your current speaking, but in a safe, private way.
Exactly. It cuts through the illusion of how you think you sound. It's fantastic for targeting specific issues and also, over time, for tracking your progress, which is hugely motivating. And it helps kill the fear because the only judge is you.
Okay, self-recording. What's the second technique?
The second one, which is a real powerhouse for fluency, rhythm, and pronunciation, is shadowing.
Shadowing, I've heard of this. It's like mimicking, right?
It's more than just repeating words. It's about copying the entire acoustic package. The rhythm, the pitch changes, intonation, the stress patterns, the pauses, the flow. Basically, the music of the language.
How do you do it effectively?
Okay, first, find a short audio clip, maybe 30 seconds to a minute long, something with a clear speaker. At the beginning, maybe news reports or simpler interviews. Later, you can move to faster, more casual conversation snippets.
Got it. Short clip, clear speaker.
Then, step 1. Listen once, just understand the content. Step 2. Listen again, but this time ignore the meaning. Focus purely on the sound, the melody, the rhythm, the ups and downs. Step 3, and this is the key, play it again, and this time, speak along with the speaker. Try to talk at the exact same time or just a fraction of a second behind, like an echo.
Speak simultaneously, not just listen and repeat afterwards.
Simultaneous or immediate echo is crucial. Why? Because it forces you to bypass your analytical brain. You don't have time to think about grammar or translate. You're forcing your mouth, tongue, and vocal cords to perform the physical gymnastics required to match the sounds you're hearing in real time.
So it's direct physical mimicry, training the muscles and the timing.
Exactly. You're absorbing the rhythm and intonation directly into your own speech production system. You're training your mouth to make the sounds and your ear to recognize the patterns. It's incredibly effective for sounding more natural and improving flow.
Wow. Okay, so implementing that 10.2 ratio using self-recording and shadowing sounds like a very concrete plan to shift from just knowing English to actually using it.
It really is. Those 2 minutes of active, focused output are disproportionately valuable compared to another 10 minutes of passive input when it comes to building fluency. It forces the execution pathways to fire.
All right, we've tackled fear, the school trap, translation, and the input-output balance. There's one final barrier our sources identify, and it's another form of self-imposed pressure, the belief that you need to sound complex or sophisticated to be fluent. Let's call this the simplicity mandate.
Yes, this is such a common trap, and it often stems directly from that school trap we discussed earlier. Because academic English, the kind rewarded in essays and exams, often values complex sentence structures, advanced vocabulary, those impressive $20 words.
So learners internalize that idea. To sound fluent, I need to sound smart. I need to use fancy words.
Exactly. They start viewing everyday English conversation as this serious technical challenge where they need to constantly showcase their vocabulary range and grammatical prowess. It makes speaking feel heavy, high stakes.
And what does that pressure do?
It leads to paralysis again. When you try to speak, instead of just saying the first natural thing that comes to mind, your brain goes on this frantic search. What's a more advanced word for tired? How can I make this sentence structure more complex? Should I use a passive construction here?
All that searching takes time and mental energy.
A huge amount. It kills the flow instantly. Remember that executive function overload we talked about with translation? This does the same thing. You're adding unnecessary cognitive load by trying to be fancy instead of just being clear. You're trading communication efficiency for perceived sophistication.
So what's the reality? How do fluent speakers actually talk in everyday situations?
If you really listen to native speakers, or any truly effective communicator, in casual conversation, what do you notice? They prioritize clarity and connection. They use language that is simple, direct, natural. The vocabulary is often quite basic. The sentence is straightforward.
They're not trying to sound like a textbook.
Not at all. Take the example from the sources. If a native English speaker is tired after a long day, what do they say?
Probably just, I'm tired, or I'm beat. I need to rest. Something simple.
Right. They use the most efficient functional phrase. They almost certainly do not say, gosh, I find myself experiencing a significant degree of physical and mental fatigue, necessitating an imminent cessation of my current activities.
Okay, yeah, that sounds ridiculous. Even though it's grammatically correct, it uses advanced words.
It sounds unnatural, stuffy, and honestly, a bit weird in a normal conversation. This highlights the importance of register knowing what level of formality or complexity is appropriate for the situation.
So fluency isn't just about having complex language available, it's knowing when and when not to use it.
Absolutely. True fluency includes the ability to switch registers. You might need more formal, complex language for a business presentation or an academic paper, but for 90% of daily interactions, simple, clear, conversational language is king.
And you build fluency fastest in that simple register first.
Definitely. You have to master walking before you can run, let alone do gymnastics. If you can't instantly and naturally say, I'm hungry, or where's the station? You're not ready to worry about deploying the subjunctive mood correctly in conversation. Build the foundation with simple, high-frequency language.
So the mandate is simplify. Focus on getting the message across clearly, using the tools you have easily available.
Precisely. Redefine your goal. Stop aiming for perfection or sounding impressive. Start aiming for connection. Can the other person understand your idea? If yes, you succeeded. That's the primary function of language.
And when you give yourself permission to be simple,
The pressure lifts. The fear decreases because the risk of making a complex grammatical error goes way down. You relax. And when you relax, your natural flow has a much better chance of emerging. Simplicity breeds confidence, and confidence allows fluency to blossom. Don't make it harder than it needs to be.
okay, this has been a really deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground unpacking these barriers that keep people who know English from actually speaking it fluently.
And the core message, hopefully, is becoming clear. If you're stuck in that frustrating gap between comprehension and fluency, it's almost certainly not because you're inherently bad at languages or haven't studied enough.
It's the approach. The strategy has been flawed.
Exactly. You've likely been trained or fallen into habits that prioritize passive knowledge accumulation over active skill execution. You've been studying the swimming manuals instead of jumping in the pool.
So let's bring it all together. We've diagnosed the fear, the school trap, the translation loop, the practice imbalance. Now, for the listener who's thinking, okay, I see it, what do I actually do starting today? Let's synthesize the actionable steps.
Right. These aren't just suggestions. Based on everything we've discussed, these are the essential components, the non-negotiables for building real speaking fluency. 4 key actions.
Action point number 1.
Prioritize output every single day. No excuses. This directly tackles that practice paradox. Commit to the 10.2 input to output ratio. If you consume English, you must produce English. Use self-recording, use shadowing, talk to yourself, find a language partner, whatever it takes, but make output mandatory.
Got it. Mandatory output. Action point 2.
Stop judging yourself. Embrace being imperfect. This is the antidote to the fear barrier. You have to consciously decide that mistakes are okay. They're not failures. They're feedback. Reframe broken English as developing English. Every time you speak despite the fear, you win. You weaken the anxiety and strengthen the skill.
Be brave, not perfect. Okay. Action point 3.
Stop translating. Start thinking directly in English. Attack that internal barrier. Make English your internal narrator, starting small. I'm walking. This is good. It's sunny. Forge that direct concept English pathway. Break the L1 detour habit. This is crucial for flow.
Narrate your life internally, simply. Love it. And the final one, action point 4.
Stop waiting for perfect English. Focus on connection. This is the simplicity mandate. Give yourself permission to use simple words and simple sentences. Prioritize being understood over sounding fancy. Clarity trumps complexity in conversation. Lower the pressure, let the flow happen.
Okay. Daily output, no self-judgment, think in English, aim for connection. Those 4 pillars seem to cover all the bases we discussed.
They do. And they all point towards the fundamental truth, the core thesis that can be hard to swallow but is essential. You don't learn to speak English primarily by studying about English.
You learn to speak English.
By speaking English. The act of speaking is the practice. The performance itself builds the skill. That initial discomfort, the mistakes, the awkwardness, that's not a sign you're failing. It's the tuition fee for fluency. You have to pay it by doing the work.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to that internal barrier one last time, the translation loop, that default L1 thinking.
Yes, because if you only change one thing, tackling this internal habit might yield the biggest results in freeing up your fluency.
Right. So here's the challenge for everyone listening. Something concrete to try right after this ends.
Before you listen to our next deep dive, or just sometime today, consciously decide to form one simple internal thought directly in English. Just one. Maybe about what you see out the window, what you're feeling, or what you plan to do next.
Not a whole inner monologue, just one single sentence.
Just one. And the question is, what language will that thought be in? Can you deliberately make it English? That tree is tall. I need coffee. Time for lunch. That single conscious act of choosing English for an internal thought
is the first step in rewiring your brain, breaking the translation habit, and starting down the path from knowing to actually speaking. Give it a try.
Absolutely. Start small, start internal, but start today.
That feels like a perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for breaking that down.
My pleasure. It's a crucial topic.
And for everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you some clarity and, more importantly, some actionable strategies. If you found this helpful, please do consider liking, subscribing, and maybe sharing it with someone else who might be feeling stuck.
Yeah, spread the word. Helping others break through these barriers is what it's all about.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in to the deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.